Hey guys, welcome back to another video here. Today we're doing what if Deku could use all 5 elements part 1. Mind you guys, don't this isn't a representative of what Deku can actually use. What Deku can actually use, which I'll also write in the description below, will be, you can use Earth, which is that, Earth is that. You can use earth, water, fire, air and space. What that means is he can manipulate earth, water, fire and air. So you can fly using air, you can breathe underwater with air. You can manipulate fire or produce fire. You can same with air. You can obviously you can end up breathing underwater, so you can generate his own oxygen. You can also do earth, which is the ground, so you can make really any kind of substance that comes from the earth. And and then there's space, so you can teleport, which I'm just saying that's like teleportation and that. So yeah, he can do a lot once he learns of his. Well, I don't really ever put quack on that because it's either an ability something or literally, hey, you woke up with an ability but not quack. But this one is going to be a quack, and yeah, of course it'll be named, all 5 elements. I don't really know, it's just, I typed in and Google went, here we go, because I thought it was earth, fire, water, lightning and something else. Yeah, but yeah, of course, with, using different ones in tandem will produce different things, like air and earth would generate lightning. Using those together will give him lightning, so it's knowing what causes what in real life. He can do that to create these certain, the sub effects, I guess. I don't really know where I was going with that. Anyway, also guys, if you're wondering, hey, is part 1 also going to be out this day, today? No, because I'm I remembered that kind of bad spot, so it'll probably be, I don't know, it may be up at 9 o'clock, but if it's not uploaded if you can't watch it at around 9 o'clock like premiere, then it'll be uploaded tomorrow at 12 o'clock UK time. Yeah. Anyway, also guys, I do kind of also want to say, thanks, thank you guys for getting me to 115 subscribers, and I kind of want to say, challenge, can we reach 1,000 subscribers before August 10th, because after August 10th, I will say because this is kind of a community, I would say. So my most popular video on the channel is what if Naruto was a girl/female part 1 version 1, which is got over 11,000, and that's kind of got the most watch hours, or has produced the most watch hours. And once of course that once that reaches a year old, of course it's not going to really be considered, because anything older than a year will be, the watch hours won't be considered, because it's what you've done over a year. So if we could, good. If we can't, don't worry, I'll just crank up my uploads, or try and make a very popular one again, who knows. Anyway, with 4 minutes of rambling out the way, let's say 5, so with 5 minutes rambling out the way, let's get into this. So that could be they would be growing up, and he'd be, fascinated by All Might. He'd, want to be like All Might one day, a hero who can save people with a smile on their face. And his mom's like, oh yeah, you really will, darling. Well, one day, you'll be the greatest hero, of them all. Just cheering them on, because she'd still have her little, float quirk, which would be kind of like the, kind of in the, well, yeah, just her float quirk and her dad. We don't really, her husband, Deku's dad, we don't really know anything about. But it's just a business trip. Who knows? He could be one for. Who knows? But yeah, or he could be. No, that'd be going too far. Anyway, yeah, but yeah, we don't know anything about his father, so I'm not going to include him in this one until we find out whose dad is. Anyway, I'm moving on again. Yeah, so he'd be he'd be fascinated to be, Mum, I really want to be, All Might one day, who could save people, with a smile on his, on my face, and make them happy in that. And, his mum go, oh, you will, darling, you will, because she would think, oh, he's probably going to either get, a fire quirk, he could, breathe fire, or, maybe, levitation, where you can levitate small things, or a combination of both, and being able to, levitate fire around. And, yeah, it's just like, maybe you will, hopefully, darling, hopefully you will. And, of course, that night, Deku, Deku will have, kind of this, at first he thinks it's kind of a dream, but of course, there's, 5 different things there. Because we know them as, say, well, yeah, I would say spirits. Kind of, the 5 kind of nature spirits. Well, elements. The 5 kind of element spirits. So you've got nature, but then elements. Yeah, 5, 5 element spirits. And of course they're, the kings, let's say. And, kings, queens, the best of them all. And of course, they're all, in Deku's mind, Deku's with them again, it's like, wow, it seems like, you're, you're gonna have, all of our powers, all 5 of us. He'd be saying something and Deku would just be, kind of confused, and of course they're kind of understand as they're talking, to a child he ain't going to understand. And yeah, so he next morning wakes up going, Mum, this weird thing, he said he was a spirit, and that, there was 5 of them, in different colours, and he said, I'm the god of earth, I'm the god of fire, I'm the god of water, I'm the god of air, and I'm the god of space. And I was gonna have that power. It's I don't know, it's a weird dream. And his mum's yeah, just kind of chucks that up to being a weird dream, as she kind of felt as she kind of thinks no, I don't think so, because she would understand that there would be those kind of types of gods, because people with water, corrupts fire, I'd say, of course, even though they're born with it, of course, the gods would go, how much of a kind of boost should we give them at birth? Or just mean, their natural, like talent. So from birth, how good are their natural talent with like their quirk. So like, would it be like a blue flame, or would it be like being able to make water so sharp it can cut through anything? Yeah, like that. And of course, instead, they're gonna grant Deku just their abilities, or in other words, they're gonna generate a quirk with all 5 natures, which would be the all 5 elements. Which, yeah. And like, of course, some time passes as he was maybe like 3 years old, and I'd say a year passes, so he's in like 4 years, and like he's now in school, and Katsun awakens his quirk, and Katsun's like, they're kind of like at the centre of everyone, and everyone's like surrounding Bakugo, going, oh wow, Bakugo, that's an awesome quirk, and he's of course Deku's told Bakugo his like his dream before, and of course they've constantly happened in that, and of course sometimes like I'd say they'd be okay kind of thing. It's like Baku would say maybe not for him occasionally when they're a kid, and he'd go to wake up Deku, and you can see like Deku producing earth, fire, water, air, which would just be that kind of like a plasma type thing. Because why not? Like well, it'd be something he'd smell fresh air, and then he'd suddenly see something teleport into his hand. So it's like, what's going on? Like, and then of course he'd go, hey, I forgot I forget Deku's real name, but he'd go, hey, Deku, wake up, and Deku would go, Katsun is just, he's like, yeah, and Katsun was just thinking, at that point, like, has he awakened his quirk, or, what is this? As Bakugo's kind of been stomped by that point, so he's never really wanted to kind of upset Deku, because he just saw Deku use all 5 elements, and he doesn't exactly want to make Deku mad, because if he enters that state, well, what happens? Deku gets so mad he makes wind, like he sharpens wind to a point where he just ends up kind of almost lapping the wind, and Katsun goes flying a mile away or something like that. So yeah, he's only kept on his good side. But yeah, of course, he's thinking, he's maybe, and Katsun's like, as they're like going out for an adventure, and Deku's like, oh, I really hope my quirk will be as cool as yours, Katsun. Well, no, they'd be in school actually. Instead of that, they'd be in school, and like just after Bakugo has done his he like there'll be like free time, playtime, and they're kind of playing about, and Deku's all of a sudden hears the 5 voices again, and goes it's time for your quirk to appear. As Deku's like, what do you mean my well, they'd say ability, they'll go your ability, but what you call an ability, well, what we call an ability is what you'd call a quirk. So yes, your quirk is going to awaken today, as like right now, as like all of a sudden like almost all, well, I'd say, well, not all 5, but I'd say he's like, well, no, he'd circulate from, he would produce first a tornado, then a fire tornado, then a water tornado, and then like just earth, like a earth, like muddy type tornado. And Bakugo sees this, and he's just like, what? and he goes, he runs over to Deku, and he's like, "Oh my God, Deku, you've awakened your clock," and he's like, "He has." Like the teacher asks, calls up Deku's mum and goes to him, "Hey, Deku's just awakened his quirk. You wanna take him over to the quirk doctor so he can have his quirk analysed and put a name to it and see what he can actually potentially do." That's what she does, and Deku goes over there, and after an hour or two, he comes out and he sits down. He's like, well, no, not he, because I'd say I'd say in this timeline, he's probably a year. Well, Deku's visiting a year earlier, let's say. Yeah, and so it's a girl instead of the evil doctor. Yeah. So it's a girl, and she's like, this is quite interesting. Deku can she'd go, "Miss Midori, have you heard of all a theory on there's the bit there's 5 basic elements." It's like, "Oh yeah." It's like, I've heard of that theory, but I can't remember what it's about. It's like, well, what your son showed is proving that theory kind of true, which is he can use earth, so you can manipulate and produce earth and possibly dirt, mud, and probably what else? You can produce water. So you can produce water and manipulate that, and even with, say, probably, using some other of his, abilities and his quirk, you can probably make that into ice, and maybe even learn to manipulate ice. And then there's fire, so you can, generate and use fire however he likes, and make it however hot he likes. And then there's air, so if he's, say, underwater, Miss Midori, if your child's ever underwater, you don't have to worry about him drowning, as he will produce his own air. He can breathe underwater. And the last one is he can teleport, or for now he can teleport small objects, but I'd say as he gets a hand on that, he can teleport himself and possibly even others. And of course that distance, we don't really know how far he could actually teleport something. And he may even be able to levitate levitate stuff, move stuff without touching it. So yeah, he can do quite a lot. It's so yeah, and also he'd be able to do say generate stuff like lightning and that if he uses the air and earth, because as you'd say, he can do some other stuff, he could produce electricity from using 2 of his abilities, so on. So it's you say, those fire tornadoes that were. So, oh yeah, I've heard of them. It's yeah, he could use his air and fire, put them together and spin them, and he'd create a fire tornado. And she's like, oh, so he could learn to do quite a lot. It's yeah, his quirk is, I would say that he could possibly be even a rival for All Might. It's a serious one. It's a very powerful quirk. And she'd also, of course, after that, she would also ring up she would ring up Yura and go, hi there, Nezu, with, let's say that again. Hi there, Nezu. I've just, finished, with a, a boy who's 4 years old with his mum, and he recently awakened his quote. It's like, yeah, what is that? Is this what you wanted to call this about? This is like, no. I called because his quirk could possibly be the strongest quirk out there ever. It's like, he's, that is, what do you mean by that? It's like, well, I'm not on about like by raw, like fighting strength, as in like All Might's fairy quirk, like kind of strength quirk. Like, no, I'm all about he can use all 5 natures. So what, that fairy is like, yeah, you can use all 5 of them. So you saw, yeah, I've seen him teleport something small. He can produce and generate fire, water, and air. You can produce all of those and control those. So as he learns, to control his quirk, and he starts understanding, different stuff and different stuff, and how different materials are produced, he'll be able to possibly even produce them. So, one day, he could be very strong. And, he could also, fly to a degree, because he can manipulate the air around him to, lift them up, or use his, space, because he could teleport, but I don't think that's the only thing he'd be able to do. I think he'd also be able to, levitate stuff without touching it, and thus he would also be able to, in a sense, levitate himself, or put a kind of negative mass on him, so like gravity itself repels him instead of pulls him down. It does the opposite and repels him. And of course now it's like, that's interesting. Like, yeah, that's very interesting. I could see now why you called me, and yeah, and it's like, yeah, they're all, like, I'd say they're all kind of okay quirks on their own. Some could possibly even become powerful, but with them together, he could do some serious stuff. It's like, he could produce, fire tornadoes, he could produce, lightning. Yeah, it's like he could produce so much stuff. Yeah, it's like, how could he produce ice? It's like, I think with understanding how his quirk works and his water ability, I'd possibly say maybe to yes, with also using, like, if he can't, if he can produce ice, then he may be able to use his space ability to be able to like manipulate the ice. So he'd be using 2 quirks, one to produce the ice, which would be the water, and air, because to cool the water down, and then the space to manipulate and produce it into different shapes and, control it and stuff like that. As he's like, that is quite interesting. We'll keep our eye out on the kid. So, as he grows up and as he goes through school, he's been training with his quirk. He's trying to understand, and he starts reading like books and that, and like how lightning's generated, how like how a fire tornado is, and other stuff like that, and he'd also slowly learn how to actually teleport himself. So yeah, and you can, like, for now he can only teleport himself, but he is quite powerful. He can levitate. He can also levitate stuff, and depending on how heavy it is, depends on how long he can keep it up from the ground for. So there's like, there is no weight limit, because of course he could something could be so heavy he could like, you know, only lift it for a millisecond, but you could crank that up to maximum and literally go, you know, go to lift it and send it off into space, or send it so fast it disintegrates itself because it's going faster than light. So yeah, you could do something like that, but that's, you know, possibly down the line. So yeah. And you know, of course, you know, like a couple of years pass and you know, he's like the sled, you know, like it would be like the day of the sludge filling attack, and you know, like Baku goes like, come on, you know, like, you know, like, you know, the teacher walks in, you know, he goes, well, you know, I know you all want to be teachers, I know you all want to be heroes, so he throws the papers up and he goes, and we've got two people who, you know, like going for UA, which is Bakugo Katsuki and Izuku Midoriya. And, you know, they're like, yeah, you know, those sort of songs that make sense why those two go, as Bakugo's still kind of got a pride. But it's more so, you know, like, yeah, you two, like, you know, you all are just actors to me and Deku. As he sees Deku, you know, as a rival, as, yeah, as Deku's kind of like, even though it's water, he's kind of like, it doesn't just mean water. So you can produce other liquid stuff to a degree. But of course he needs to use his other abilities to compensate for someone who could say, you know, just produce that one thing. So yeah. So like, to a degree and enough training, which he has been, you know, like doing and looking up on how explosions work, and yeah, so he does actually, I'd say, he does end up learning how to actually like copy Bakugo's quirk, his explosion quirks, because it's like, you know, it's really just like, say, like gasoline, or what we would call petrol, you know, just a bit of that, like, you know, say compressed, and then just added like a spark or a flame, and it will explode. Or, you know, like, have, you know, piling a load of, using just its air, you know, piling a load of compressed hydrogen. I think hydrogen's explosive. Yeah, he's doing, you know, compress a load of hydrogen and then putting, like, you know, another separately, compress a load of oxygen, compress those both, and then, you know, you could throw it like that, make a grenade out of that, and just watch it blow. And if you don't know what anime that's from, well, that's from Wise Man's Grandson. Yes. That's why I got the idea for that type of explosive type thing that he could do. Because it's really, you know, he's got all five natures. He just needs to know, you know, water, it just means, you know, like liquid stuff. But it could also mean water's other substance, which is ice. And he could also, to a degree, control steam with using his fire to heat up the water, and then, like, you know, say his ability to control, like, levitate stuff. Well, no, because there's still water in it, he can control it, he just needs to heat it up, which he uses fire. So you use air to cool it down, and fire to heat it up. So yeah. Or you can just teleport the water into space and then teleport it back, and it would be ice. Of course, behind Earth, not in front of it, because if in front it would disintegrate and behind it would freeze. Not unless it separates, who knows? Anyway, yeah. Yeah. And, yeah, and of course, you know, like, and catching, you know, back, not catch, there. I'm forgetting how to speak now. Deku's just like like, come on back and go, you need to stop calling, everyone else, actors. You can't do that in UA because, that'll be, like, they'll be good, they may even be better than us. And Becky goes, well, I can say for sure they probably won't be better than you. And I guess they could be better than me. And it's like, yeah. But still, they're still all actors to me, and she's like, then you're just an actor to me then, back guys. He's like, hey. He's Decky's just Jacqueline a bit. Yeah, and back goes like, so you still haven't managed to, copy my quirk like you said you may be able to. And Dave's like, oh, you mean this, as he does it in his hand. Back goes just like, oh, never mind. This everyone's just like, what, Deku, when could you do that? It's like, well, I kind of thought maybe that, the water just meant liquid. Like different liquids I could control. So I decided to see if I could produce something that's explosive, and I did. So I've just been kind of trying to make it stronger, so it looks like I've got a copy type quirk. Because back is just like, that's quite smart actually, because you could quite easily fool someone, because before, say, you could go in battle with ours there, you could touch me and then go to use my quirk, and they'd think it's got a copy type quirk, and say then touch someone with water and then do only water, which would confuse them quite a lot. As Deku is like, that's quite interesting, Baku. That is quite interesting. Yeah. Of course, well, yeah, well, yeah, he won't really say his quirk, so everyone won't really know what his quirk is. They'll just see, oh, it must be something, it must be a copy type quirk, or something like that, because Aizawa will know, but Aizawa will be quite surprised. I do want to say about UA, but that'll be in part 1, which possibly be out either I would say tonight, but tomorrow night for me. But yeah, for you guys it may be tonight if you guys watch this in some countries where it's morning. But yeah, anyway, yeah, so yeah, so I'm gonna end off with that. So you've got, in the next part, you've got this sludge filling attack, Deku possibly meeting All Might, well, he probably will, and the UA entrance exam. So yeah, if you guys have enjoyed this, like, enjoyed it so much, and you want to see more just like this, subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next video, or what if, the man I do, and hey, good bye.